I always dreamed of opening my own restaurant. It wasn't some childish fantasy. I spent years working toward it. Every part-time job in high school, every shift I pulled during college, every dollar I could squirrel away went into one thing: the dream. 7 years. $75,000. That money represented more than savings. It was sweat, sleep deprivation, discipline. It was mine. And my parents knew it. They knew how hard I worked. But I don't think they ever really believed in it. "You'll grow out of it," they'd say. "It's not stable," they'd warn. They thought I'd eventually wake up and want a desk job or follow in Dad's footsteps. But I didn't. I kept my head down, lived at home to save money, and put in the hours. My younger sister? She was the golden child. Straight A student, charming, perfect in their eyes. I swear, she could crash a car and they'd blame the tree. Me? I was always too quiet, too stubborn, too different. But I put up with it. I told myself it was temporary. Once I opened my restaurant, everything would change. Then, one night, my parents called a family meeting. I thought they were going to congratulate me, maybe even say they were proud. Instead, they blindsided me. My sister had gotten accepted into an Ivy League master's program. And the cost? Way more than they expected. So they looked at me with these serious faces and asked me to give her everything. All $75,000. At first, I thought they were joking. I laughed. But they didn't. They were dead serious. "She needs this," my mom said. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," my dad added. They said I should be proud to help my sister succeed. And my sister? She just sat there with this smug little smile. Not a word. No hesitation. Like she already knew I'd be expected to fold. But I didn't. I said no. And that's when everything changed. You should have seen their faces when I refused. Like I just spat on the family crest or something. My mom immediately burst into tears. Said I was being cruel. That I didn't love my sister. My dad, his voice turned cold. "After all we've done for you," he said, "you'd throw this family away over money?" Money? It wasn't just money. It was my life, my dream, my independence. But they didn't care. To them, I was just the backup plan. The wallet. The lesser sibling whose only purpose was to support the real star, my sister. And she didn't even try to stop them. She didn't say, "Don't worry, I'll take loans." She didn't say, "You've worked too hard for this." She didn't say anything. She just sat there, letting them fight her battle. I tried to stay calm. I told them, gently at first, that I loved her, that I wanted her to succeed, but I had worked too long and too hard to throw everything away. I even suggested alternatives. Loans, scholarships, deferring for a year, getting a part-time job. My dad slammed his hand on the table. "She's not like you," he snapped. "She has potential." That cut deeper than I care to admit. In their eyes, she was meant for greatness. I was meant to get out of the way. And when I wouldn't bend, they gave me an ultimatum: hand over the money or pack my things. 24 hours. So I packed. I walked to my room, numb, heart pounding, hands shaking. Packed every piece of clothing, every little item I'd collected in that house. All while listening to them mutter outside my door about how ungrateful I was, how I'd ruined everything. Even then, part of me waited for someone to stop me, for my mom to knock, for my dad to cool off, for my sister to say something, anything. But no one did. They just watched as I carried my life out the front door. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about money. This was about control, about how they'd never truly seen me. Not as a person, not as someone with value. Just a backup character in the story of their perfect daughter. So I drove off with everything I owned in the back seat. Angry, hurt, but strangely free. The first few nights were the hardest. I stayed on a friend's couch, surrounded by my duffel bags and a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. I didn't cry, not right away. I just sat there at night staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I kept replaying the conversation with my parents. Their faces, the way they looked at me like I was a stranger, like all those years of loyalty and quiet sacrifice meant nothing. I kept thinking about the fact that I'd been living under the same roof with people who apparently believed I owed them my entire future. And the silence? It was loud. At first, they flooded my phone with texts and missed calls. Mom sent guilt trips. "We raised you. We gave you everything. This is how you repay us." Dad was more blunt. "You'll regret this. That restaurant will fail, and you'll come crawling back." But the one that hurt the most? A message from my sister. "You were never really part of this family." That one shattered me. For a minute, I actually started to wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe choosing myself was the wrong thing. But then, I remembered the sacrifices I had made, quietly. The jobs I'd worked since high school. The dinners I missed. The shoes I never bought. The way I'd scraped together every cent because I had a vision. A goal. A future I was building one brick at a time. And they wanted to take that future and give it away like it was nothing. No, I wasn't wrong. The next day, I unblocked my parents just long enough to send one message. I love you. But I'm done being the one who gives everything and gets nothing. Please respect my decision. Then I muted the chat and got to work. I found a small studio apartment. Not much, but mine. I dove headfirst into my restaurant planning. I wrote menus late into the night, ran numbers over cheap takeout, sketched out interior ideas on napkins. Every day was hard, exhausting, lonely, but it was mine. Friends showed up for me in ways I never expected. Old coworkers helped connect me with suppliers. A buddy offered to help paint the space when I found a location. Even my landlord gave me a break on rent after hearing my story. And through all of it, my family stayed silent. No apologies. No support. Just whispers through cousins and extended relatives, who either called me brave or called me a disgrace. But every day, as the pieces of my dreams started to take shape, brick by brick, recipe by recipe, I knew I'd made the right choice. For months into the restaurant build-out, something unexpected happened. I was in the middle of testing out a new marinade in the tiny, makeshift test kitchen I'd set up in my apartment when I got a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a towel, opened the door, and froze. It was my sister. She looked different, not polished or proud like the last time I saw her. Her makeup was minimal. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired, smaller somehow. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then she looked up and said quietly, "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, unsure what this meant. She sat at the edge of my tiny dining table, fingers laced, eyes focused on the floor. I waited, and then she said the last thing I expected to hear. I was wrong. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't make excuses. She said it flat out, that she had been entitled, spoiled, and completely out of touch. That she never really thought about what my dream meant to me because she was so used to things going her way. She told me how, after I left, our parents turned all of their disappointment onto her. They expected her to somehow fix everything, to find the money, to stay perfect, to not complain. But life outside that house wasn't as easy as she'd thought it would be. She'd applied to dozens of jobs, taken retail shifts, and tried to save, but with rising rent, she barely broke even. And for the first time, she realized how hard I must have worked all those years. I didn't understand what it meant to build something from nothing, she said, voice trembling. I do now. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to stand up and scream. Another part wanted to hug her. Instead, I just listened. Then came her second surprise. I'm not here to ask for money, she said. I just need a job. Something steady. I can serve tables, wash dishes, anything. The silence between us stretched. This was the same sister who had called me selfish, who sat silently while I was kicked out of my own home. But the woman sitting in front of me now wasn't the same. She wasn't smug. She wasn't entitled. She was just a young woman trying to stand on her own. I didn't say yes right away. I told her I'd think about it, that I needed time. After she left, I sat alone in the quiet for a long time. Part of me was still hurting, still bruised. But another part, the one that had always hoped she'd understand someday, felt a strange, cautious kind of hope. Maybe this was the start of something new. A few days passed after my sister's visit, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Her words echoed in my mind during every task, while slicing vegetables for the test kitchen, while emailing vendors, even while sweeping the dusty restaurant floor late at night. I remembered the way her voice shook, how she couldn't quite look me in the eye. That wasn't the sister I grew up with. That wasn't the version of her who sat silently as our parents pushed me out. I thought back to my own lowest point, when I was loading my car with everything I owned, walking away from the only family I'd ever known. I remembered the fear, the sting of betrayal, the loneliness. And yet, that pain had built something. It had lit a fire under me and made me fight harder. Was it possible she was going through her own version of that now? I called her. We met at a nearby park bench. No pressure. Neutral ground. I brought 2 coffees, unsure if she still took hers black like she used to. She smiled when I handed it to her, softly, hesitantly. I meant what I said. She told me right away. I don't want special treatment. I'll do anything you need. Hostess, runner, even dishes. I took a deep breath. I believe you. And I appreciate it. But I also told her I wasn't sure if working together was a good idea. Not yet. That our family history was still raw, that I was still building the restaurant's identity, and I didn't want anything to compromise it. Not even well-meaning intentions. She nodded. She understood. Then I did something that surprised even me. I told her I would help her financially. Not with everything, not like our parents demanded, but enough. Enough to get her started again. I told her I'd cover half of her tuition for the first year on one condition. This isn't a gift, I said. This is an investment. In you. But only if you take it seriously. She blinked at me, stunned. Why would you do that? After everything I said, did. Because you showed up, I said quietly. Because I see someone who's finally learning what it means to fight for something. She started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just silent tears running down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly and promised me that she wouldn't waste the chance. I believed her. We haven't told our parents. Maybe we won't, not anytime soon. This is between us. Later that night, I stood in the quiet restaurant space and let myself breathe. The walls were still half-painted, the light fixture still dusty, but it was mine. And now, somehow, my sister and I were writing a new chapter, one not dictated by guilt or rivalry, but by respect. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe we were building something better than we ever had before. The following week passed in a whirlwind. Between renovation delays, equipment deliveries, and endless city paperwork, I barely had time to think. But late at night, after locking up the restaurant, I'd catch myself rereading my sister's email. The one where she said she finally understood what this dream meant to me. It hit different every time. Then, just as things started to feel manageable again, the universe decided to test me one more time. My parents found out. I don't know if it was a cousin who let it slip or if they simply noticed my sister had started preparing for her program again. But I got a call from my mother, and her voice was colder than I've ever heard it. So, you have money for her now, she said. No hello. No small talk. Just venom. I was standing in the walk-in cooler, trying to ignore the sting of frostbite in my fingers and her words in my ear. I explained, calmly, that it was my decision, on my terms. That it wasn't the full $75,000 they had demanded, and that I wasn't jeopardizing my dream to do it. I told her this was something between me and my sister, and that I hoped, one day, we could all sit down and rebuild what was broken. Her response? You're still selfish. You're trying to make yourself the hero, but you've always been the disappointment. She hung up. I stood there in the freezer, breath visible in the cold air, completely numb. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I just felt done. Later, my sister texted me. They're furious. I'm sorry, but I'm still going. No matter what. Thank you again. I replied, you earned it. Just keep going. And that was it. For now, at least. The next morning, I unlocked the restaurant, turned on the lights, and got to work. I rolled out dough for a new lunch item. I rearranged a few bar stools. I called a local artist about hanging her work on the walls. Simple things. Steady things. My things. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing validation. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just building. Quietly. With purpose. I didn't have a perfect family. I didn't have a full staff yet or 5-star Yelp reviews. But I had a place with my name on the lease. A space where people would gather and laugh and try something new. A place built not on sacrifice, but on belief in myself, in what I learned, and in the chance that people can change. Even family. Even me. 3 months later, the restaurant was finally finding its rhythm. We weren't just surviving, we were starting to thrive. The Saturday brunch crowd had become a regular thing. Our fusion dumplings had been featured in a local food blog. Customers began to recognize me by name, leaving handwritten notes with their checks, compliments, ideas, or just thanks for the experience. It was everything I had dreamed of, but built on a foundation I hadn't expected. Resilience, yes, but also grace. Grace toward myself. Grace toward my sister. And somehow, even grace toward the parents who had once told me I was a mistake for refusing to hand over my future. A few weeks ago, I visited my sister on our campus. It was a short visit. She had midterms, but we sat on the library steps with coffee and talked. Really talked. For the first time, we were just two adults, no longer playing roles in a rigged family play. She told me about her classes, her new friends, and how hard she was working. I told her about the restaurant's highs and lows, the days I wanted to quit, and the nights I felt unstoppable. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. "I know I didn't deserve your help back then," she said quietly, "but you gave it to me anyway. I won't forget that." "You earned it," I said again. And I meant it. When I dropped her off at her dorm, she hugged me and didn't let go for a long time. That night, as I returned to my apartment above the restaurant, my tiny sanctuary, I found myself smiling. Not a proud smile, not even a relieved one. Just peaceful, like something heavy had been lifted from my shoulders. My parents and I still don't talk. Maybe we will someday. Maybe we won't. But for the first time, I'm no longer waiting for their approval. I don't need their blessing to live the life I chose. My validation doesn't come from their voices anymore. It comes from within, and from the sound of laughter in my restaurant, from the buzz of a Saturday rush, from the smell of garlic and ginger sizzling on a hot pan. Would I do it all over again? Yes. 1,000 times, yes. Because in the end, I didn't just protect my dream, I honored it. And somehow, I helped someone else find their own along the way. If you had told me a year ago that I'd lose my family, my home, and nearly my faith, only to find peace, purpose, and even reconciliation, I'd have laughed. But life has a strange way of folding in on itself and stitching up its own wounds. Sometimes, the hardest thing you'll ever do is say no. And sometimes, that no is exactly what opens the door to everything you were meant for. So if you're standing on the edge, torn between your dream and someone else's expectations, hear this. You're allowed to choose you. You're allowed to build the life that sets your soul on fire. And you don't have to burn it down for anyone else. Not again. Not ever.